He made $10 million, supported his wife's entire family, and then his mother-in-law said, "Get out, you lowlife." So he disappeared, without a word. Want to know what that man really did after a slap-in-the-face line like that? Stick with us for this gripping story. Marcus couldn't remember exactly when he first saw Claire, just that it was on a sweltering hot day. He was on his knees, pulling weeds around the wooden fence behind Mrs. Diane's house when she stepped into the yard, phone in hand, voice drifting lazily through the afternoon sun. Her blonde hair hung down her back, and her blue eyes flicked toward him for a second, then looked away. Back then, Marcus just thought, another rich girl home for the summer. Nobody ever remembers the gardener. But Claire wasn't like the others. The next day, she walked by, paused for a second, then asked, "What are you planting?" Marcus looked up. "Dirt streaked and muddy. Hydrangeas. Your mom wants them moved closer to the fence." "They're pretty. Did you study gardening?" "No. I learned with my hands." His answer made her smile. From then on, Claire started coming out to the yard more often. Sometimes she'd bring a cold bottle of water. Sometimes she'd just lean against a porch post, watching him work and tossing him a few questions. Marcus wasn't used to that kind of attention. Most people treated him like part of the lawn, unnoticed, not worth remembering a name. He didn't talk much, but he wasn't dumb. He knew exactly how far apart their worlds were. She was the daughter of a retired teacher and an accountant, a family that ran on books and degrees. And him. He was the son of a Mexican immigrant, raised in a peeling rented apartment, dropped out of school at 16 to do landscaping with his uncle. But Claire didn't seem to care. A week later, as Marcus was loading fresh soil bags onto the truck, she asked, "If I asked you to lunch, would you think I'm weird?" "Yeah," he said, "but I'd still go." A few months later, they were officially dating. Claire told her mom straight up, "I love Marcus." Mrs. Diane froze for a few seconds, then scoffed. "You love the guy working the yard? Fine, but don't bother calling for more tuition money." Claire thought she was joking. She wasn't. Diane actually shut down the bank account Claire had been using to pay for her next semester. Marcus found out when he saw Claire crying alone on a bench in the park near her dorm. "I'll help," Marcus said, just like that. "No, you don't have to take this on. You don't need my permission. I've already picked up extra hours at 3 different places." Marcus worked mornings as a gardener, afternoons at a car wash, and nights delivering food. No complaints, no drama. Every weekend, if he still had energy, he'd stop by to see Claire, bringing homemade sandwiches and little stories from the different gardens he'd been digging through. Claire didn't blame her mom either. She said Diane just had high standards. Marcus didn't answer. He'd met people like Diane before. They never said it out loud, but their eyes said plenty. The first time Marcus met Diane, she asked him one question. "Do you actually have plans for your life? Or are you just going to mow lawns forever?" Marcus simply replied, "I know what I'm planting." Diane didn't like that answer. When Marcus proposed, Claire said yes immediately. They had a small backyard wedding at a friend's house. No parents from Claire's side, no blessings from relatives, just a few of Marcus's friends, a couple of Claire's co-workers, and a wedding cake she baked herself. Diane didn't send anything except a text. "I can't attend the wedding of a mistake." Claire didn't cry, but her hand stayed clenched through the entire ceremony. Marcus didn't need a crowd. He only needed one person standing beside him. And that day, Claire was there. Even with the world silent, she chose him. 6 months after the wedding, Marcus was still up at 5 every morning, hands in the dirt, head buried in the garden beds behind their rented house. He kept working for clients during the day, but started testing a small, clean vegetable setup on the side. Just 12 wooden crates, each with a different water distribution method. He read articles online, borrowed books from the library, and watched farming videos late at night after Claire had fallen asleep. Hydroponics, crop rotation, drip systems. Marcus didn't just want a garden. He wanted to understand the soil down to its bones. "If dirt is the only thing guys like me get to touch," he told Claire once, "then I'm going to make it pay." The first crop of greens came out shockingly lush. Marcus gave them away to a few people he knew. One older client, a widowed woman in a big Northcrest estate, offered him a deal: redesign her entire backyard into a mini food garden. "If you can grow this out of a rental lot, she said. I trust you can turn my yard into paradise. That was his first real order. Then came the second job. Then the third. Word spread. Everyone wanted a clean, pretty garden where they could pick their own veggies every morning without hitting the store. Marcus named the service Green Loop, the closed Green Loop. He hired 2 friends to help out, split the workload, kept the quality tight. Claire started pitching in too, no longer just the supportive wife. She handled the paperwork, the money, the client contracts. You need someone to keep a clear head while yours is full of dirt, she said, sitting at the little table next to the fridge, building spreadsheets on an old laptop. They filed for a business license. Green Loop Gardens was officially born. Nothing fancy. No office, no signage. Just a small company run from the backyard where Marcus had first lined up those 12 wooden crates. Diane called when she heard the news. Not to congratulate them. Aren't you tired of living in dirt? She asked Claire, dragging out the words like she could smell manure through the phone. We're building a sustainable model, Mom. Building? Just make sure you 2 don't end up full-time farmers. 1 lifetime of that wasn't enough? Claire didn't respond, but after the call, she went quiet for a long time. Marcus didn't ask. He knew comments like that would keep coming, for years, in different forms. They didn't expect Diane to understand, let alone approve. Using savings from bigger contracts and a small business loan, Marcus bought a plot of nearly 10 acres on the city's outskirts. Old land, dry, overgrown with weeds. But Marcus saw something else. This place, he said, walking Claire across the rubble-strewn ground, is going to be the city's first agricultural experience center. People will come here to learn how to grow food the way you grow trust. Claire laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks of stress. Someone's gonna say you're dreaming in broad daylight. Well, he said, I'm dreaming in the light, aren't I? Diane didn't ask about the project. She just sent one short message. Careful you 2 don't turn into full-time farmers. Live by the dirt, you'll end up buried in it. Marcus read the message, said nothing. He closed the phone and went back to sketching the irrigation layout. Claire exhaled slowly, like someone who knew she'd never make her mother proud, but would keep going anyway. Because the man out there under the sun, bent over without a single complaint, without needing anyone's belief, was still turning dry dirt into their future. 3 years after Marcus stood on that weedy patch of land and declared it a future hub, Green Loop had become a citywide destination. When the pandemic kept people home and worried about food, the Grow Your Own model exploded. The company website nearly crashed. Orders backed up for weeks. Marcus had to hire more workers, buy new equipment, and double the size of the storage facility. That year's second quarter revenue tripled compared to the same time the year before. Articles about Green Loop popped up in local magazines, then in a few industry publications. The gardener from a rental lot who turned wooden crates into $1 million model, one headline read. Marcus didn't comment. He still wore work clothes, still held a shovel and a hose, just with a much fuller meeting schedule. With steady cash flow, Marcus decided it was time to buy a house. A spacious one in the northern suburbs, not too far from Green Loop's center, but quiet, with a backyard, an attic, and most importantly, enough room for Claire and her parents. Claire hesitated when he brought it up. You mean my mom would live with us too? Your parents are retiring. If we can take care of them, we should. I'll design the upstairs separately, a small kitchen, a living room, private stairs. You sure? Yeah. Sometimes to show people who you are, you have to let them live close enough to see it. Diane agreed to move in after just one phone call. No thank you, just a request to see the layout before any renovations. On move-in day, she stepped out of the car with a leather handbag, didn't even look around, and told the delivery guy, "Careful with that cabinet, don't put it near the window. Sunlight fades the wood." Marcus was mid-lift with a box of books. He paused. "That window's already tinted. You're good." Diane glanced over and gave a slight nod, spoken like a true service worker. That evening, they had their first meal in the new house. Claire cooked roasted chicken with fresh basil cut from the backyard garden. Diane sat at the head of the table, looked around, then suddenly gave a soft chuckle. The farm boss makes a decent dinner table too. Marcus was pouring water. He paused. "I only pick hardwood. The soft stuff swells up when it's damp. Well, look at that. Not everyone has time to juggle a shovel and a stove every day. Claire cut in. He taught himself everything. That's why the company's grown. Diane tapped her bread against the plate. Grow all it wants. If he's still got his face in the dirt every day, it's still just labor, sweetheart. Marcus didn't respond. He kept eating. Slowly. The next morning, she hired gardeners. Marcus stepped outside and saw two strangers digging up the backyard. I already take care of the yard every week. I know, but I figured you've got your hands full. Don't make your wife wait. I'm out here every morning. Done before 8. Well, you don't always have to prove something. When you've got money, you should learn to delegate. Marcus didn't answer. He went back inside and put away his gloves. The next week, she replaced all the porch planters. New flowers, paler colors. Her reason? The old ones looked like a grave site. Claire stayed quiet when Marcus told her. She's not used to living with people, she said softly. She always panics when she's not in control. I don't need control, Marcus said. I just don't want to feel like an employee in my own house. She didn't know what to say. Marcus wasn't angry. He just started working downstairs with his laptop, rarely going up to the shared living space. He was used to being underestimated. But living with it was something else. A place is worth living in, not because of its size, but because of its atmosphere. And this new house, no matter how beautiful, was starting to feel heavier by the day. The air inside began to resemble the places Marcus used to work, spotless, polished, but not his. Some things didn't need to be said out loud. They came through in how people arranged the furniture, how they glanced your way, or, like that morning, in a voice drifting down from upstairs. Marcus was watering the plants near the porch when Diane's voice came through the open window. She was on the phone, speaking in her usual flat tone. Yeah, this house feels like a seedling station. Dirt and vegetables everywhere. The smell of grass punches you in the nose. If I didn't live here, I swear they'd store fertilizer in the kitchen. A shrill laugh echoed on the other end. Don't say that, Diane went on. I'm trying to adjust to life in the million-dollar farming world. Marcus froze. Water kept running from the hose, soaking his shoes, ice cold. He stood there for a few seconds, then quietly turned off the tap. The following week, they hosted a small get-together. A potential investor from San Diego, along with a few of Claire's business contacts. Marcus wasn't used to events like this. He prepped snacks, set up tables in the backyard, arranged flowers from the garden, burlap tablecloths. Simple, but thoughtful. When the guests arrived, Diane was the one who answered the door. Welcome, she said brightly. Come in. This is my daughter, Claire, Greenloop's head accountant. And this, she gestured to Marcus, her husband, my son-in-law, the vegetable guy. A brief, polite chuckle. Marcus nodded, offered a handshake. No one said anything offhand, but the way Diane said it, like she was naming a side dish on the menu, made his ears burn. That night, Marcus cleaned up alone. Claire had walked the guests out. When she came back in, she saw him folding napkins, his eyes distant. I'm sorry about what she said. It's not the first time. She doesn't mean anything by it. She just says things wrong. You know that. I know. The next day, Marcus moved his workspace downstairs. He turned the small storage room off the kitchen into a makeshift office. No one asked why. One evening, Claire said, I'm thinking of letting Mom take over the interior stuff. She keeps saying the living room furniture looks clunky and late. Marcus looked at her for a few seconds. You mean let her decide everything? I think if you let her handle it, she might stop nitpicking. And what about me? It's just furniture. Marcus nodded. All right, if you think it matters, go ahead. They didn't say anything else. The following Sunday, Claire cooked passion fruit chicken breast, a recipe Marcus had learned from an old client. He helped with the prep, plated the meal, laid out each garnish with care. When everyone sat down, Diane picked up her chopsticks and looked at the plate in front of Marcus. Who made this? I did, Claire said. Marcus cooked. Diane frowned. Passion fruit, always with the weird tropical flavors. She picked up Marcus's portion and slid it onto Claire's plate. Give that to someone who understands taste. You eat this instead. She pushed the beetroot salad tray toward Marcus. Marcus didn't touch either plate. He poured himself some water, drank slowly, then stood up and put the glass away. No one said a word. That night, he went down to the makeshift office, sitting alone under the warm yellow bulb. On the desk lay his unfinished plan to expand Greenloop into the neighboring state. He stared at it for a long time. Not because it was hard, but because in that moment, he wasn't sure if he still wanted to share any of it in that house. Ever since Diane slid his plied with the words, "Give that to someone who understands taste," Marcus had started rethinking everything. Not the gardening, not the expansion plans, but the way he was living in his own home. He didn't argue, he didn't complain, but inside, what used to be water had started turning to stone. Each morning, he still watered the plants, checked the drip system, read customer emails, stare. But his eyes had gone colder. No one asked why. No one dared. One afternoon, Marcus came home early after a land survey. As he opened the door, he heard Diane's voice coming from upstairs, on the phone, loud and clear, not bothering to keep it down. "No, I'm serious. I'm sick of living with a gardener pretending to be a boss. This house, this company, he's my son-in-law, not some CEO for people to worship. Did you know he used to sleep in a truck, and now he sits in meetings like he invented greenery? I haven't kicked him out yet, that's all. Get lost, you lowlife." Marcus froze at the bottom of the stairs. Car keys still in hand, his fingernails pressing into his palm, burning. He pulled out his phone, pressed record. His hands didn't shake. Just cold. Cold like the winds turned and you forgot your jacket. When the call ended, he put his phone back in his pocket and walked straight down to the ground floor. Not a sound. That evening he cooked dinner like always. No one knew a thing. The next day, Claire asked, "You've been so quiet lately? Is something going on?" Marcus handed her his phone. He had the recording queued up, said nothing. Claire listened to the whole thing. No skipping, no pausing. When the audio finally ended, she sat still for a long time. "When did you hear that?" "Yesterday." I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything." She buried her face in her hands, exhaling hard. She lost control. Mom always goes overboard when she's angry. "Claire?" Marcus cut in. His voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp. "I don't need you to defend her." "Then, what do you want me to do?" "It's not about what you do. It's about the fact that you heard it, and still asked me why I've been distant." Claire lowered her head. "I just don't want this to blow up. She's getting older. I'll talk to her." Marcus didn't say another word. That night, he didn't eat dinner, didn't sleep. He sat out in the garden, among the rows of vegetables he'd grown with his own hands, from the first hint of dawn until the dew formed beads on the wooden armrests. At sunrise, he walked back into the house, washed his face, brewed a cup of tea, then started packing. Not his bags, the system. He printed a detailed inventory of all company assets, outstanding invoices, unsigned contracts, account access information. Emailed the lawyer to begin separating the shared finances. Drafted a temporary power of attorney granting Claire full authority over Greenloop. Every move was precise, calm, without hesitation. Not because he wanted to leave, but because he couldn't stay. Not in a house where he was treated like a gardener freeloading at someone else's dinner table. By noon, Marcus sat at his desk and signed the final document. Black pen, quick-drying ink, no second thoughts, no glancing back. Marcus didn't say a word on his last night in that house. He still did his usual rounds, watering the garden, checking the backyard locks, gently lifting each potted plant by the wall like he did every night. Claire went to bed early. Diane had been silent since lunch, after a conversation with her daughter that Marcus didn't need to overhear to know was meant to put out the fire. He left the keys on the table by the door. No note. The door closed softly behind him. The old white pickup rumbled to life at 3:12 a.m. No one was awake. No one saw him go. It was still dark when Marcus drove back to the old Greenloop site, the company's first operations hub. Now it was just a shipping depot and seed nursery. No staff stationed overnight anymore. But tucked in the corner of the warehouse was a small room, once used by the original install crew, with just a bed, a hot plate, and a cold water shower. Marcus stepped inside, flicked on the warm yellow light, pulled the dust cover off, and sat down. It wasn't that Marcus had nowhere to go. He did. But he chose to return to where it all began. Because here, no one looked at him with judgment. No one called him a pretend boss. The next morning, Claire called. He didn't pick up. By noon, his phone lit up with a message, a screenshot from Claire. A chat with Diane. Tell Marcus to come back. Don't be petty. I said those things out of anger. Adults slip up sometimes. Marcus read it, pressed and held, deleted it. That afternoon, Claire called again. This time, he answered. Her voice was soft, tired. Can you come home? Why? Because it's still your home. It's not. Marcus, who did you choose to stand beside you when you introduced me to others? Silence, long. I don't know. I do. The call ended there. No abrupt hang-up, no anger, just a slow breath, then silence. The next day, Marcus met with his lawyer. There were no complications. Personal assets, shared property, all clearly separated. He requested to file for legal separation. He also submitted an updated power of attorney granting Claire full control over Greenloop during his absence. Joint funds would be moved into a trust managed by a neutral third party. You want to withdraw from all accounts? The lawyer confirmed. Yes. You're sure? The company's still turning steady profit. I'm not doing this for the money. The assistant glanced at him briefly, said nothing, just nodded and typed in the request. That afternoon, Marcus returned to the site, trimmed the hedges by the door, installed a new lock, cleaned the small back room. No one knew where he was. And to Marcus, that didn't matter anymore. Greenloop didn't collapse when Marcus left. The company kept running smoothly. Even expanded into a new product line for apartment dwellers who wanted to grow food at home. Every so often, a past client would leave feedback and ask, "Does Marcus still design? We miss his touch." A few even sent flowers addressed to him, though they knew he wasn't there anymore. Marcus stayed silent. He didn't need to be at the center for things to function. Didn't need to sit in the executive chair to prove he'd built it. He just needed not to be called a pretend boss in the very company he had built with bare hands. 3 months later, Claire sent a handwritten letter. That familiar slanted script in a plain white envelope. Mom moved out. I'm sorry I didn't stop her in time. I know I left you alone when you needed me most. Marcus read the letter, folded it, and placed it in the bottom drawer. He didn't write back. By then, he'd already started a new job, working as a consultant for a private chain of eco-parks developing experimental garden systems, a serious project, a respectful one. And no one there asked if he ever went to college. Marcus bought a small plot of land in southern Arizona, right along the edge of a nature reserve. Plenty of sun, red soil, harsh climate, but he saw potential. He built a simple wooden house and set up a garden of rare plant strains beside it. Restricted access, just him and a small technical team. Every morning he rose before the sun, watered, took notes, checked moisture levels, ate breakfast, cornbread and raw greens. No interruptions, no family dinners. No one saying, "Give that to someone who understands taste." 1 year to the day since he left, Claire showed up, no warning. She stepped out of a silver SUV. No bags, no letter, nothing in her hands. "I wanted to see you," she said, standing beneath the shade of a tall cactus near the front door. Marcus didn't speak. He just tilted his head slightly and opened the door. She stepped inside, looked around the house, neat, simple, stripped of anything unnecessary, then out toward the back lot where rows of plants were rising in quiet order. "You really did it," she said softly. "I always did." "No, I mean, alone." Marcus sat down on the wooden chair. "Sit." They didn't speak for several minutes, just the sound of wind and insects murmuring outside. "I'm sorry," Claire said, her voice tight. "I stood in the wrong place. I didn't speak when I should have, not because I hated you. I was just scared of breaking something, but in the end, I let it fall apart." Marcus didn't look at her. He spoke slowly. "What you said now should have been said then, when I was being called lowlife right in front of you." Claire lowered her head. No excuses, no begging, just quiet acceptance. "I'm not angry with you," Marcus continued. "I just don't have space left in me for apologies that can't fix anything." She stood. "I understand. I just wanted you to know, I know it was my fault." Marcus nodded. "I believe you." Claire left that afternoon. No hug, no promises. There are things you can buy with $10 million, a big house, a thriving company, even the respect of strangers. But there are things money will never be enough to hold on to, like respect, like trust, like the feeling of being seen as a whole person in your own home. Marcus built everything with his own hands, but in the end, he had to choose to walk away. Not because he lacked anything, but because he couldn't keep living in a place where he was treated as less than. Not everyone who earns money gets treated with dignity, and sometimes leaving is the only way to keep the last shred of it you have left. Money isn't everything. It can buy a soft bed, but not peaceful sleep. It can buy a big house, but not the feeling of belonging. It can buy attention, but never true respect. What do you think? In a relationship, between family, between spouses, between one person and another, what truly matters more than money? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched something real in you, hit subscribe to follow more stories like this, raw, honest, and quietly devastating. We're here to tell the parts of life that you might have lived through or never dared to say out loud. Thank you for staying with us until the end.